up guys, Taylor here. Thanks so much for checking out this video. This one's all about easy bar chords. So if you've been playing around with guitar a little bit, you've probably heard about bar chords, and they're tough. And don't worry, they're tough for anyone. So don't beat yourself up. They're tough for everybody at first. So I certainly want to encourage you to continue working on those bar chords, and you will get them down, I promise. It just takes practice and some patience. But what I want to do in this video is show you some alternative ways to play those same bar chords. They're going to be a little bit easier for you. So I call them easy bar chords. They're great ways to kind of substitute the normal bar chord shapes that are kind of tough and kind of do the easier versions of those. And the cool part is these easier versions are still movable anywhere on the neck. And we're going to learn 4 easy bar chord versions today that can kind of substitute our 4 regular bar chord shapes. So let's go ahead and just dive right into it. There's a lot to cover here, but this is going to be a great way for you to kind of substitute those hard bar chords for some easier ones, and hopefully it'll help you maybe learn some songs that have these chords, and you can then work your way into those full bar chords as well. Let's do it. All right guys, so let's go ahead and learn some easy bar chords. So just to kind of give you the quick rundown, as far as our kind of regular normal bar chords go, we basically have 4 different bar chords that we can play. So we have 2 bar chords that are based on E chords. So if you think of your regular old E major chord and your E minor chord, we base our bar chords off those 2 chords. So what we would do is we would normally bar across with our index finger. We could do this on any fret of the guitar. I'm just going to go ahead and stay right here on the 1st fret for now. And then we would put our other fingers in the shape of an E chord. So we have the bar plus an E chord, and if you kind of think about these fingers, it's the same as a regular E chord, right? Even though the fingers I'm using are a little different, it's the same shape, same kind of pattern there with my fingers. So we have bar chords based on an E chord, and then also an E minor chord where you would just take your 2nd finger off. And we also have that same idea with A chords. We have our A major chord, and then we have a bar chord kind of based on our A major chord, so we kind of use that same shape and we can move that around. And then same idea with A minor. We have our A minor chord, and normally what we would do is we would take that same shape and just add in the bar. But these chords can be kind of tough, so let me give you some easier ways to play those 4 essential bar chords. So let's go back to the E chords. So this is how we would kind of normally do it, right? We would bar with our index finger, and then we would again make that E shape with our other fingers, and that can be played anywhere. But if that's a little tough for you, let me give you an alternative version of that. That's going to be quite a bit easier to play. And then you can use these alternate kind of easier bar chords when you're maybe learning songs, and then eventually you can go ahead and get those full bar chords down as well. But let's try the easy version here, guys. So again, here's our normal version. And this is the E-shaped bar chord. And here's how you would do the easy version. So let's just stay right here on the first 3 frets. I will show you how to move these as well. But just right up here on the first 3 frets, we would do our ring finger on the 3rd fret of the D string, our 2nd finger on the 2nd fret of the G string, and then we would bar with our index finger the E and B string on the 1st fret. So essentially you still have to bar a little bit, but now you only have to bar 2 strings, right? Instead of doing the whole guitar there. So now we're just barring 2 strings, just those top 2 strings, the E and B string with our index finger, 2nd fingers on the 2nd fret of G, ring fingers on the 3rd fret of D. And so this chord can essentially replace this full bar chord. It'll be the same chord, and it's just a little bit easier to play. So many of you may have seen this already in the form of an F-shaped chord, so maybe you learned F this way. And if you did, if you have seen this before, that's totally fine. But remember that this is not just limited to being an F. So because we're barring, meaning we have no open strings in the chord, we're holding all the strings down, we can actually move that. So that shape, just like a regular bar chord, can be played anywhere on the guitar. And the way you kind of identify what chord you're playing is you basically just identify the root note. And in this case, the root note is going to be the lowest note of the chord, which for this chord shape is the D string. So whatever note you're holding down right there on the D string, that is what chord you're playing. So let's do a quick example. So in this case, we're playing an F chord. If we play it right here on the first, second, and third frets. And the reason being is because this note is an F note. So if we were to kind of count through our strings and in our notes, we would have our open D would be 0, D sharp, E, F. So the reason this is an F chord is because of that F root note there. But remember, you can also move this around. So if you moved it up to the second, third, and fourth fret, now you're playing an F sharp. Whatever that root note is, whatever that ring finger is holding down on the D string, that is your what chord you're playing. If we move it up again, this note is now a G, so that's now a G chord. This note would be a G sharp, that's now a G sharp chord. So you may have seen this before in terms of learning F, but remember that you can actually move that around and play essentially any chord anywhere on the neck with that. All you have to do is identify whatever that ring finger is holding down, identify that note, and that's what chord you're playing. If you need some help identifying the notes, check out the link in the description below, where I do have a little tutorial about how you can learn all the fretboard notes in less than 5 minutes. So I won't go into too much detail on that right now, but basically for this lesson, just understand that your ring finger for that chord is the root note. So whatever note that is, that's what chord you're playing, and you can move that anywhere on the guitar. And that can essentially replace this full bar chord. And it's a little bit easier to play, a little bit easier to work with. And you could use that for maybe learning some songs that might have bar chords, and then kind of work your way into those full bar chords. Let's talk about the minor version. So we have, that was the major version that we just covered. That's the normal major version. When we do the minor version, we just take our second finger out. And so again, this is kind of the normal bar chord version. So how can we make that a little bit easier? Well, basically the same idea. We're going to start with our ring finger on the third fret of the D string. Again, this can be moved anywhere. We're just going to start here. And then this time we're going to have to bar just a little bit more. We're going to have to bar all 3 of these strings here. So the G, B, and E string. So you're still doing some barring. Can't fully get around that. But it is a little bit easier than probably playing this entire chord, right? We're taking a few strings out of the mix. A little bit more manageable to just have to grab these 3 strings here. And that can replace your minor chord shape. So when you have your E minor shaped bar chord, you can kind of substitute that for this version. And that can again be moved anywhere. So this is a minor chord, but we can play it anywhere on the guitar. And the same principle applies. Whatever note this ring finger is holding down, that's your root note. And so that's what chord you're playing. So if you're playing it right here on the first and third fret, where your ring finger's on the third fret, you're going to be playing an F minor. So F is that root note, and then we're doing this minor chord shape to make it an F minor. If we scooted it up one, now it would be an F sharp minor. If we scoot it up again, now it's a G minor. So whatever this note is, that ring finger note, determines what chord you're playing. So those are two substitutes for your regular bar chords. Again, we have our regular bar chords, we're barring all 6 strings, and we have those in the shape of E chords, E major or E minor, and you can actually substitute those for kind of the easier versions. There's your major version, and there's your minor version, and those work really well and are great ways to play bar chords if doing those full bar chords are a little bit tough for you. Let's go ahead and talk about the other two bar chord shapes, which are based on A chords. So we have our A major chord, right? The way we would normally do a bar chord for this is we'd actually have our ring finger bar the D, G, and B strings. And then we could have we could move that. So as soon as we move it, we have to just bring our index finger in, and that would grab the A string, in this case on the 1st fret. So that's kind of the normal version. So let me give you the easy version of that. So that one's a little bit tough again. We're trying to, give you some options to make these a little easier for you. So the way to do that one a little bit easier would be like this. So this would be just a 3-string chord. Again, I'll start here on the 1st and 3rd fret, but you can move this anywhere. So you would have your 2nd finger on the G string 3rd fret, your ring finger on the B string 3rd fret, and your index finger on the high E 1st fret. And you can just strum 3 strings with that. And for this one, you don't have to do any barring. It's kind of nice, right? So again, this one will substitute or replace this normal A-shaped bar chord. You can just do a nice 3-string chord here. No barring whatsoever. And again, it is movable, so we can move that to any frets. We just have to keep that same distance, right? We have kind of that fret space in between, so we have to keep our fingers spaced out the same way. But we can move that around really easily. And the way to identify what chord you're playing is again by the root note. Except in this case, the root note is actually going to be the note on the G string here. So again, it's your lowest note of the chord, because we're only playing 3 strings for this chord. We don't want to play E, A, or D. So it's the lowest note in there, and that's going to determine what chord you're playing. So if I'm playing this right here on the 1st and 3rd frets, I just have to identify what this note is, the 3rd fret of the G string, and I'll know what chord I'm playing. So we have G, G sharp, A sharp, which can also be called B flat. It's 2 names for the same note. But if I go ahead and play that chord, now I'm playing a B flat chord. And so it's a lot easier. If you're having a little bit of a hard time getting those normal bar chords down, this one's a heck of a lot easier way to do B flat than this way. Right? So that's kind of our goal here, is we want to substitute some of these harder bar chords for something that's a little bit easier to play. That way we can still, play songs that might have these chords in them and not have a terrible, horrible hand cramp. So again, your root note is the G string, and that is movable. So right here it's a A sharp, aka B flat note, which makes that a B flat chord. If I move that up, now that's a B note, now that's a B chord. If I move it up again, that's a C note, Now that's a C chord. And you could do this again anywhere on the guitar. So whatever that ring finger, whatever that G string note is, that lowest note of the chord, that is your root note. You could also switch your fingers. So if you want to play this a little differently, you could actually do your ring finger and pinky here if you want. So I'll let you guys decide what's most comfortable for you. But same principles apply. Whatever that ring finger, whatever that G string note is, that is the chord you're playing. And then one more bar chord, guys. So normally we would have the A minor version. We would take an A minor shaped chord, and then we would do kind of the same thing. We'd add our index finger into bar, and we'd have these fingers in the shape of an A minor chord. So again, that's kind of the normal way. And the easier version of that is going to be ring finger on the 3rd fret of the G string, second finger on the 2nd fret of B, and index finger on the 1st fret of the high E string. Again, just a 3-string chord, but that will replace or be a substitute for that normal A minor shaped bar chord. And so again, you can move this anywhere on the guitar. It's always going to give you a minor chord. And the way you identify what chord it is again the same thing, just by identifying that lowest note of the chord, which in this case is the G string. So if I'm playing it on the first 3 frets here, my ring finger's on the 3rd fret. We already kind of covered that was an A sharp or a B flat note, right? So now I'm playing a B flat minor chord. Before it was a B flat major when we did it this way. That was the major chord. This is now the minor chord, but it's still a B flat because that root note is the same note. So it's a B flat and it's minor because of this little chord shape we're doing. So that makes a B flat minor. If we scooted it up one, that's now a B note. Now we have a B minor. If we scoot it up one again, that's a C note. Now we have a C minor. And so on and so forth, right? So you can move this anywhere. All you have to do is identify that ring finger note. So let me give you guys an example of how you can use this in a song. So one song that comes to mind is Wild Horses by the Rolling Stones. The first kind of chord transition in that song, or one of the main ones, is a B minor to G. But let's say that B minor chord's tough, right? That's the kind of the regular version. It's a little bit tough to get all your fingers there. Right now it's hard to get all those ringing out, so you want to do an easier version. So we can use our easier version of this chord and do it this way. So now we're going to identify a B root note. We've got A, we want a B minor chord, right? So we got G, G sharp, A sharp, B, and then we just do our little easier version, right? So now that gives us a B minor. We could still play G. And now it's a little bit easier to handle those bar chords at first, so that you don't have to do these full bar chords. You can kind of substitute them out for some of these easier chords, easier versions, and then kind of work your way into the full bar chords, right? So just to kind of recap that for you guys, basically we have our easy version of the E-shaped bar chords, which looks like this for a major chord, and this for a minor chord. And all we have to do to identify what chord we're playing is just identify the lowest note. So whatever that D string note is, that's what chord we're playing. And if we do it this way, it's a major chord. If we do it this way, it's it's a minor chord. Same thing for the other two easier shapes. First we have this one. We identify the lowest note, which is the G string. When we do it this way, with this shape, that gives us a major chord. When we do it this way, that gives us the minor version. And again, you're just identifying what chord you're playing by identifying the lowest note, which is the root note. So hopefully, guys, that gives you some ideas of how you can kind of substitute these regular bar chords for some easier versions, and maybe go out there and learn some songs that maybe you were struggling with a little bit previously. Try those easier versions with it, and then work your way into those full versions. Alright guys, so there you have it. Those are some easy bar chord shapes that you can use, and you can substitute those out for kind of the regular bar chords. Again, we have 4 main bar chord types. We have 2 bar chords that are based on E major and E minor, and 2 bar chords that are based on A major and A minor chord shapes. And now we can take what we learned today and kind of substitute those out for the easier versions. That'll help you maybe learn some songs that use those chords. You can still move them up and down the neck anywhere you want, and then again you can work your way into those full bar chords as you continue to progress. So I hope this lesson was helpful. Definitely let me know in the comments. Thanks so much for checking this video out, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe to help support the channel, and I will see you in the next lesson.